us across all your favorite podcast platforms. You could find us on YouTube, and please remember to subscribe. My guest today is Eric McFadden. Eric is a diagnostic imaging supervisor in Richmond, Virginia. He is on the he has a plant-based journey that he's going to tell us about. He's an expert on healthy vegan traveling, and he has Instagram accounts at Rain and Reed. That's RAINE and Reed, REED, and Carbivore Fitness. Eric, welcome to the show.
Hey, Glenn, I just want to thank you for letting me on today and letting me get to tell my story about what's been going on in my life the past 6 years. I really appreciate you having me on.
Well, it's my pleasure, and I'm eager to hear this story. I know that a lot of it involves overcoming autoimmune conditions. So tell us about that. Tell us when you began your plant-based journey and what the autoimmune conditions had to do with it.
Yeah, this excites me to talk about it because you're a titan in the community, and I read your book, Own Your Health, and it's a lot like your wife's story where you're trying to overturn some issues with autoimmunity through food. So I know, I'm sure you've dealt with Food Over Medicine by Pam Popper too.
Yeah.
Um, that was an exciting book that I read, but I was kind of clueless when all the autoimmunity started, Glenn. I was real into the bro science of eating a half a dozen eggs every morning and
A
two
half a
chicken
dozen
breasts.
eggs?
Oh yeah, got to get your protein in, Glenn.
Now were you a weightlifter? Was something making you
Yeah.
eat half a dozen eggs?
Yeah, so that was really my passion was the whole bodybuilding thing.
Uh-huh.
Picked it up really hard when I was about 21 years old, and I just did a lot of the ketogenic and paleo diets, rotating them back and forth and trying the whole biohacking movement, if you will. Listened to a lot of guys at the gym about how you need protein, 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 and kind of obsessed over it. And maybe I took it too far, but that's probably why I started having terrible autoimmune issues. Uh, Before 30 years old, I was pretty messed up with my immune system.
Well, what was going on with your immune system?
Yeah, so I had a handful of things going on. It really started out with facial rashes everywhere, which wound up being psoriatic arthritis. So I kind of had some arthritis symptoms as well as the rashes. So that's kind of the diagnosis they slapped on me.
You want to show an image of that?
Yeah, I got one on my phone right here. My face was covered. Um,
Uh-huh.
And
All
I
right.
mean, if you're going to get a rash somewhere, getting it all over your face is definitely
Right.
something that's hard to deal with. So for me, there was definitely an obsession with root cause. What can I do that's going to overturn this? That's not going to be a medication because I was in the medical field for 15 years, and I just kind of saw some of the breakdowns of the system, and I wasn't really confident in utilizing anything that has to relate to our Western medicine system. Everything is treating people in silos and not ever getting to the root cause. So yeah, I had the psoriasis, and because of that too, I had terrible joint pain everywhere. It had gotten so bad in my feet; they were so swollen that I was cutting new pairs of shoes open just to give myself a little more breathing room in my feet. Had a really hard time walking, and to me, that was the indicator I needed to see what was going on. I needed to start going to the doctor and getting blood.
Right. So you were an otherwise healthy guy around 30 or so?
Yeah, but yeah, a little before 30.
28,
Um,
29, and you're a
yeah,
weightlifter,
I was still lifting the
going
weights,
to the
but
gym a lot.
yeah, yeah,
Everyone would say you're a really fit guy,
yeah. You
and
don't
you're
have any
suffering.
issues. Just throw some lotion on your face, you'll be fine, that kind of deal. But I knew there was some underlying stuff going on.
Yeah. So what kind of doctor did you go to, and what did the doctor say?
So it started with the hematologist getting the blood work, found some pretty terrifying results, and then going to a rheumatologist. I had high CRP, which is an inflammatory marker. And I thought to myself, how could I be inflamed, But this is what it all comes down to is the whole inflammatory process.
Right.
So just taming the immune system, you're inflamed.
Yeah.
So and it got scary, Glenn, because as we did more blood work, I kept finding more and more things out. So it got to the point where I was stacked up with at least three autoimmune diseases, psoriatic arthritis, thrombocytopenia, and then the one that really freaked me out was hemochromatosis
Okay,
because
so tell us about those other two conditions, thrombocytopenia and hemochromatosis.
yeah, so thrombocytopenia is low platelets. It's really difficult to find a root cause for that. It's they just say sometimes your immune system can attack your platelets. So, but like I was figuring out, my immune system was attacking pretty much everything. The hemochromatosis, not even sure if you can really call it an autoimmune disease per se, but I can tell you that as a cardiac MRI technologist, I was scanning people on the regular who had this hemochromatosis. And what you'll see is your ferritin levels will be off the charts, 600 plus. At least mine was. And you'll see
Too
all
much
kinds of
iron.
mine was around the over 600, yeah.
Yeah.
So and I was scanning people who had this in a cardiac suite, an MRI, and their myocardiums were damaged, their livers were dark from all that iron overloading. And I
Right.
know here in America we push iron, 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 take your iron tablets, we obsess over it, but a lot of people actually have this iron overloading issue. And I had done a 23andMe DNA test around the same time that showed I had an allele that could be activated epigenetically um, to be prone to iron overloading. So when my rheumatologist or my hematologist pointed this out, I kind of told her it was a possibility, and then she wanted to do the DNA testing. I'm like, I can already tell you, I've been taking health into my own hands a little bit. I could tell you that I know I'll probably have a genetic predisposition. So,
Hmm. So what did you do when you found out that you have these three autoimmune conditions?
well, and I was scared, man. I was thinking I'm way too young. I had a daughter on the way. Um, I really, really was scared, having a family and whatnot. I wanted to figure out what was going on. And like I said, being obsessed with the root cause, I knew that if I had iron overloading, it must have been coming from something I was ingesting. You can't just be iron overloading, right? So it led me to start studying deep into JAMA and all kinds of um, just studies that because I wanted to know the truth. It was no longer I'm going to follow someone and listen to what they say. I need to start learning how to read studies. So what you find with iron overloading is a lot of people are able to reverse this. When I was reading about certain plant compounds like quercetin, which is in apples and red onions, and then rosmarinic acid and rosemary, and I thought to myself, wow, all these foods have the same thing in common. They're all plants.
You never find magic compounds in sausages, do you?
You
I don't know why
never
that
find the
is.
medicine in the meat, do you?
There are no magic compounds in scrambled eggs.
Nope. Nope. Antibiotics. That's about as good as it'll get. So
Mm.
it led me down this path of not only having to really research, food can be medicine, but how do I know that the studies are real? Right? So how do I know that they're double blind, placebo controlled, randomized with crossover? I mean, I spent every minute breaking into this stuff, breaking it down, and never did I think I would have to get this deep into it, but I really wanted to figure out what was going on. So I
Did
can't.
you find that you were able to tell when you're reading in the Journal of the American Medical Association different studies that you were able to discern, oh, this study is more credible than this study?
Yeah, so thank goodness, a shout out to Dr. Greger, who really kind of takes you down the path of
Hmm.
understanding what you should trust, right? Biggest thing for me was, and I was already doing it, are these studies funded by a certain interest before I go down this road, right? Because you
Right.
can get a lot of conflicting results from just the wrong crowd of people telling you what to do. So, yeah, it was really who funded the study. And then, like I said, double-blind, placebo-controlled, randomized, no corporate interest, etc. So, yeah, I was blessed. I was blessed for him to start releasing books right when I was going down this path. It really expedited the process for me and allowed me to find out more truth in what I was studying and more confidence. Because, I mean, I think we all know that the hardest thing about nutrition is people, they just they don't know 100%. They don't have any solid info. It's very nuanced. So by default, you just start listening to someone who you think has the best ideas or the best physique. And that's why my Instagram is kind of a little stab with the carbivore fitness instead of carnivore fitness. There's just a lot of charlatans out there, and it's
Right.
sad.
So you start reading these studies, and what do you conclude?
It all just goes back to the plants, Glenn. It's so what I started to do is basically convert. I was still scared to give up meat due to protein. I still enjoyed the bodybuilding thing. So it was a gradual move of pescatarian. So I began to eat tons of fish. And long and behold, a cardiologist I was working with at work, he was, a big proponent of the Mediterranean diet. And so, I thought I was perfect. The blood work was straightening out. My hematologist was blown away because I had two phlebotomy sessions to lower my ferritin count. They each should have come out to be about a 30-point drop in ferritin after phlebotomy. Um, and I was seeing drops of over 100 points a month in my ferritin through just eating plants and an occasional piece of salmon or two during the week.
Right. And of course, the way this works is that when you eat heme iron, animal iron, body absorbs it. The proponents of the animal-based foods think that this is a selling point. They say our iron is more easily absorbable. Yeah, that's the problem. That's the problem. You don't want to be absorbing all this iron. You want to absorb only what you need. So when you eat non-heme iron, plant iron, the body stores it and absorbs what you need, and the rest it gets rid of, right?
Absolutely, Glenn. I think that if you look at a lot of the vegetarian populations, I was finding that hemochromatosis was nil. It doesn't exist. It's
Right.
another fabricated disease from overconsumption of animal foods.
Right.
So yeah, gradually began to wean those things out, and my hematologist was blown away. She didn't believe it. She said, "There's no way you can be dropping 100 points of ferritin with one phlebotomy session."
Right.
Um, and I told her, I said, I'm using means of nutrition as well to chelate the iron out of my blood. I'm eating a plant-rich diet that has got a lot of specific things in there that were found to kind of push the iron out of your system. I was doing tons of wheatgrass.
Mm-hmm.
That was another one that I know helped for sure. Because I don't think, it's crazy to think that if I stayed on the path of Western medicine, I would have been doomed to doing phlebotomy every few weeks. And they hit you with I believe it's a 16 gauge needle, which is very large. And that's got to sit in your arm while you drain blood. To me, this is all just a waste of time. I'd rather be reading about root cause things that would
Right.
take care of this than sit there in a recliner and let them poke me
Right.
to pull iron out of my system. I mean, I was reading about all kinds of things with mineral metabolism and how copper can help, iron homeostasis. I was getting deep into the weeds, but it doesn't have to be a complicated message. It can
Right.
really just be eat plants and it'll sort itself out.
Right. Now, you were reading these studies that you used to deduce that you should have a plant-based diet, but did you also see documentaries or read books or anything else introduce you to the plant-based diet?
There was all kinds of breakthroughs I was happening. So, like I said, Dr. Greger was really helping me to differentiate on the lies and whatnot. But I started to, and you could see this on my Instagram. I have read well over 100 books on nutrition because I mean, you're talking to a guy who was ketogenic before everyone else. I was obsessed with it. And to pull myself away from that and try to completely reframe all my beliefs was really difficult. So I just was beating a dead horse and just reading book after book after book. Proteinaholics from Garth Davis. That was
Uh-huh.
another good one because it was intertwining with my interests of bodybuilding, and I was worried, oh, I'm not going to get enough protein, I'm not going to get enough of this, I'm not going to get enough of that. But what you find is you actually have a better nutrient profile as you move toward plants, because the only reason why you're getting those nutrients is because the animals are eating them in the first place. And
Right.
it starts to become such common sense, but I think it's difficult for most in America to make those connections. So I gotta admit, I was a blessed man. My wife jumped right on it. My kids have been plant-based since day one. 7 years old, 5 years old, never had any meat, never had any dairy. We won't let it happen. My wife has made a cookbook and we have a lot of fun with it. And the other big thing there is we travel a lot with the kids too. So we've come
Right.
up with a lot of recipes that it's all just a lot easier than people think. They're scared of it, I think, because they think it's so complicated when it doesn't need to be. Also, my brother-in-law jumped on, sister-in-law, mom, mother-in-law, everyone's jumping on, the whole family's getting into it, and they're all finding that they're curing all these ailments.
We need to put you in charge of the whole world because we got a lot of other people out there. If you're doing a great job of recruiting, as it were,
Yeah.
just by example, I imagine. But did all three autoimmune conditions resolve? The platelets?
So it was miraculous, Don. It was the changes started occurring within the first 3 weeks. You could say that I guess it was severe to cut out all meats and all dairy and just leave salmon, but it really wasn't difficult. And the lab work was straightening itself out rapidly. CRP dropped plummeted to nothing. Platelets were rising back up. Iron overloading. Ferritin levels were coming down. Um, no more breakouts on my face. Hasn't occurred since I made the switch. So no more psoriasis. It's just miraculous what it can do. I always kind of felt like food was medicine, but when you really put it to the test and you really learn, a lot of it is more so what you're taking out as opposed to what you're putting in. That's when the magic starts to happen. So not only was the blood work straightening out in the overall health, but all of a sudden I went from a waist size of 36 down to 30, and my strength was going through the roof. So all of a sudden, my hobby, which really is only bodybuilding, just got better. And I would have never thought that. I was terrified of being an
So
obesity eating
even the
human.
bodybuilding got better
Yes, yes, that's
with less protein.
with less protein, Glenn.
How
So
about that?
what do you know? The carbs are magic. I deprived myself from them for so long. All I ever craved was a sweet potato and at more apples and just more of the stuff that I couldn't get in my diet because I was so hyper focused on the eggs, the chicken, the steak, you know, eating
So
that
is it
stuff.
possible, Eric, that the muscles build up because of the resistance training and not because of the chicken? Is that is,
I
is
I
that possible?
100% think so. I think
All right.
this comes down to stimulus.
Uh-huh.
It's the training volume, and then how you feel yourself. You need that carbohydrate intake. The glycogen goes right into the muscles. I mean, it's not rocket science. You need
Mhm.
carbohydrates. You thrive off them. And like McDougall's always said, eat the foods you love. This is what you love. You just don't know you love it because you don't eat it enough.
Right.
And we're still, how many years later here, people are still terrified of carbohydrates.
Well, let's see what they're afraid of. The word is carbo from carbon, which is the stuff of life, and hydrate from water, hydrogen. So carbon plus water equals carbohydrate. I don't know if they're afraid of the stuff of life carbon or the stuff of life water, but if you're afraid of that, you got a problem.
Absolutely, Glenn. And let's take it a step further. Everyone on their fitness journey obsesses over the protein and the fat, but when we look right to, calories per gram, carbohydrates down there at the bottom. The more
Yeah.
carbs you eat, the less calories you're taking in. And then not to mention, you can almost negate the fiber count into the calories as well. So I spend the majority of my day, Glenn, eating oats and rice and apples and potatoes and all the stuff that I love in excessive amount.
Well, it's clearly not excessive because you're in good shape. So, but the point is, you could eat as much as you want.
Yes.
Um, and you said that your condition started to resolve when you went pescatarian. I'm assuming you gave up the fish at some point. So, how long did it take you to give up the fish and why?
So once I got a little deeper into Dr. Greger's book and started reading about the TMAO and some of the deleterious effects that can occur from fish, um, it was a little alarming to me. But fish wasn't something I desired the way I liked my eggs and the way I liked my shrimp and things like that. So it actually wasn't that hard to get rid of it in the diet because you also want a diet to be simplistic, right? So a lot of my stuff, I can grab all those carbohydrates out of my pantry and all my fruits out of my freezer. There's no preparation to it. But with the fish, I felt like I was seasoning and standing over a grill constantly. And like I said, my family were big into traveling, so we like to have stuff on the go. You're not going to pack salmon in your suitcase for the airport, you know? Um, it just became something where it was kind of a nuisance to have to go get it fresh and organic. And people think that you're buying these cuts of meat and you know everything about them, but you just don't. You don't.
You don't know if that salmon is wild caught or from a really sick fish farm where all the fish are
Bingo.
concentrated like they concentrate pigs in CAFOs.
I think people are too trusting in where their food is coming from. So for me, once I ditched the fish, I felt even better once again. So it's just it's really what you're replacing. How far can you go with it? And
Mm.
now it's been a good 6, 7 years, and I continue to just feel better every day. So
Well, that's a great endorsement for the diet. And when your wife went along on this journey with you, it sounds like almost from the start, right?
very supportive woman. Yes.
Did her health improve in any way, or she was feeling fine all along?
Glenn, I feel like she downplays it. She's got all her genes are from Sardinia. So she's an Italian woman and she's never really had health issues. She's never been an extremist about health like I have. So she's never overindulged and she's very level and she saw a couple changes like she had a rash of some sort on her hand that went away and her energy got a little higher and a couple
Mhm.
things like that. So she enjoys it. She, like I said, she loves feeding our kids that way. She loves helping me prep all kinds of on-the-go meals for traveling, granola, kale chips, things like that. And we just we're kind of minimalists in this household. So we find it fun to eat from the bottom of the food chain and make things simple. Every time we go to travel with other couples, they're running around, where are we gonna eat? Where are we gonna eat? Where are we gonna eat? Losing their mind. And it's like we're just gonna grab some quick fruit and go back to a hike. For us, it's more about living in the moment, enjoying adventures than it is to obsess about what restaurant are we getting to next to have a big slab of meat. You know what I mean?
Right. Now, your two children, 5 and 7, you said, right?
Yes, sir.
They have been plant-based all their lives.
And they are thriving. They are doing excellent. My daughter is one of the best at gymnastics in her class, one of the best cheerleaders, the only flyer right now on her cheer team. She is excelling. They are healthy, homeschooled, happy. They are doing great.
Wow, that's great to hear.
Yep.
Now, when they interact with other kids whose parents are not feeding them as good a diet, how do you deal with that?
Glenn, whew, good question, man. That's a hard one for me, a harder one for me than most things with this dietary pattern because Everywhere you go, we were at a birthday party yesterday, and the kids are going to be eating all kinds of cake and ice cream and pizza. And so, what we found is the best for that predicament or that specific scenario is making sure the kids get a lot of fruit, tofu in them, and stuff like that before we go to the parties. We'll also make sure that everything is, like vegan snacks. We'll get them vegan cupcakes and stuff like that, and just bring them with us.
So they bring their own healthier cupcakes,
Bingo.
and
So they don't feel completely left out, right?
right, and so they don't feel like they want to indulge in the unhealthy foods.
No, we get them some pretty tasty snacks, some Whole Foods cupcakes and things like that. Some
Yeah,
stuff that, is it the healthiest thing ever? No, but is it going to take them away from, the typical norm? Yeah.
yeah. Now, do they ever say to you, "Daddy, can I just have some pizza or anything like that?"
They're pretty good about it. The couple times my daughter's got a little sassy, like she's gonna go eat, some pizza or meat, I go ahead. You'll probably be sick to your stomach for a long time because I don't think the human body, when it eats as good as they do for so long, and then you go ahead and indulge in that, I don't think it's gonna sit right with you. Whereas when, a normal American is born and you're just eating bad from day one,
Yeah,
you can't differentiate. And that was a lot of the things with this dietary pattern. As you go deeper in it, you feel better and better every day because you never realized how bad you felt
yeah.
to begin with. You thought it was the norm. Like I thought it was the norm to have psoriasis and arthritis and all these other things. It's not the norm. It's not the norm because these things
Right.
went away once I made the changes.
Dr. Michael Clapper, the iconic plant-based physician, has said that we need to do a study of people like your children because they're rare in this country, people who have eaten healthy human food from birth.
Yeah,
So keep track of their medical records. Dr.
will do.
Clapper may love to examine them one day, their records.
Yeah.
If we could, because all the vegans I've met who have been vegan from birth, and that's not too many, they've always been in excellent health. They've always thrived.
Yeah, I believe
Um,
it.
so I had an interview with Mark Huberman recently, who's the head of the National Health Association. He's been vegan from birth.
Wow.
And I asked him what he likes to drink. And he said, I don't like to drink much. I said, well, just water then? He said, no, I don't really drink much water. He said, now, if I'm been hiking in the heat, of course I drink water, right? He's not opposed to drinking water, but he doesn't do 8 glasses of water a day. And I said, why not? And he said, because I'm eating plants all day long.
They hydrate you.
Yeah. So, when you're eating grapes and watermelon and apples and leafy greens, you don't really need necessarily 8 glasses of water, though I think there's probably nothing wrong with it.
Glenn, I watch people at work bring these Stanley cups in they're the size of their body. And I think to myself, how do you guys drink this amount of fluid? If you were eating as many blueberries, apples, and oranges and bananas as I do in the morning,
Yeah.
you just can't get this water in. Like
Yeah.
I went through a couple binges on watermelon where I ate a half a watermelon in a sitting, and I realized I can't have another sip of water for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
My body doesn't want it anymore. But
Yeah.
but with that, you're getting all those vitamins and minerals. I mean, the three biggest things there that are downplayed are fiber, vitamin C, and antioxidants. And
Yeah.
that's in the plants.
Right.
So I don't think your body requires this amount of water that people are drinking. It's something.
Yeah. All right. We'll take a quick break and we'll be right back with Eric McFadden.
If you want to optimize your health by following a plant-based low-fat diet, look into the education, events, recipes, exercise, fun, and more provided by the Plant-Based Nutrition Support Group at pbnsg.org.
Okay, we're talking with Eric McFadden. His Instagram accounts are Rain and Reed, that's RAINE, and Reed, REED. and Carbivore Fitness. Eric, let's talk about your traveling because you're something of an expert on how to do healthy, active family traveling. So, what types of trips do you do? The hiking, the bike riding? Tell us about that.
Yeah, so with this dietary pattern change, you wanna make sure that you're fed if you need to be, and when you're traveling, obviously that can be difficult. But we've been doing it long enough now where we feel it's really something that's easy. So we've gotten good at making sure when we're on the road, we got some smoothies, I make like 10 different granolas, all different types of kale chips, put them in bags, put them in the suitcase, and you got them on the go. And everyone's always gawking at you like, "What, how are you so prepared?" It's just something for us that's gotten easy. So we've been taking our kids because it's our passion. We've taken them to Hawaii, Costa Rica. We're leaving for Iceland in 2 weeks. We'll be living in a van essentially. So we're gonna have some food packed in there. Um, it's not as difficult as you would think. So
Now, when you're first flying to Iceland, there's only so much food you could bring on the plane. So I'm guessing you're going to be doing some shopping there before the traveling within Iceland, right?
yeah, yeah. So I mean, I think a lot of people forget this. Everyone's always freaking out. What am I gonna grab for a snack? What am I? Fruit, fruit. It's easy. You can recognize it, right? Let's think about when we're going into Iceland. We're gonna be looking at a language we don't know. Reading packages where the words don't make sense, right?
Mhm.
So how do you get around that and still eat healthy? You grab the fruits right off the shelf, right? You can recognize them. So, and that's just another thing. That's God's dessert or God's snack. He's just sitting right there. Apples, bananas, it's easy, filling. So, yeah. Once again, we're going back to carbs.
Okay. Um, and when you go on a hike, you take a lot of granola.
Yeah.
Um, do you have a strategy that you just eat when you're hungry, you push yourself? Uh, what's your strategy?
Well, my strategy is, because I'm still reading books like a madman with all that energy the plant-based diet gave me.
Hmm.
I find myself eating in such a manner that I never really get hungry. I think a big thing of health there is to eat the majority of your calories in the morning. So when I wake up, I'm having a giant smoothie and a giant bowl of granola. And what I find is that usually keeps me full, Glenn, up until dinner time. Drink some water or another smoothie later on in the day if you want, but around 3:30, 4 o'clock, it's time for dinner. That'll be more so hummus and kale chips or some garbanzo beans that are already air fried in a bag. Eat those to get a little more protein if you feel you need more protein. um but like I said, it's all just a lot easier than people think, and you could fit quite a bit in a suitcase if you keep it all in baggies. It'll be enough. A lot of people have this misconception that I just can't eat enough food to feel satiated on a plant-based diet. Well, yeah, you've got to increase the volume once you've dropped the caloric load. It's kind of common sense. So it's sad when you see people walk away from this diet because of that specific reason that they feel like they're just not satiated, and the body will come around. You'll get satiated from it. I feel like I'm eating more than everyone else around me, but I'm consuming so much less calories.
Hmm.
I just feel better off of it. You never really feel that bogged down feeling after eating a bunch where you got to lay on the couch and be miserable. You know what I mean? The energy just, it's there. And that's why a lot of the hiking and biking that we do as a family, it just gets better every day because we continue to have energy. We're fueled appropriately and we just feel good enough to do things like that. It's sad when you see, other families that just they can't keep up because of nutritional issues.
Yeah. Now, what do you tell your children? What do you and your wife tell your children about the fact that other children and other people are eating animals and they're not? How do you explain that to a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old?
Yeah, that's another good question, Glenn. It really is. I think I think my kids have always just made that connection. Maybe because the environment of my wife and I, it's just so foreign to them, right? They don't really see anything in our house that's like that. And when they see other kids eating it, they still to this day inquire, like, why is so and so eating an animal, Dad? And oh no, buddy, you don't need to eat an animal. And they just make that connection. They really do. I think kids, they're a little more intelligent than we give them credit for. I don't The whole idea of eating animals is only a normal concept for us because that's how we were all raised. If you weren't raised that way, I think you make those connections a little bit sooner. But you know, Glenn, it's hard, obviously, because it's like almost everything these kids grab nowadays is it's got dairy in it. And if that doesn't tell the story, what does?
Yeah. And I'll bet a lot of the kids around them are overweight, right?
And that is, I try not to say that specifically to my kids, but I tell them, I think you guys thrive because you're eating the better food, the fruits and the vegetables. And my
Yeah.
son gets it. My wife sends me videos of him when I'm at work of him pounding broccoli and lifting weights already at 5 years old. And
Uh-huh.
I think it's adorable. I think, it's definitely the way we want to continue to go with these kids.
Yeah. No, you're doing the right thing. And, I just kind of feel sorry for the parents who are raising kids and they think that they're giving them a lot of cheese and scrambled eggs and sausages, that it's healthy for the kids, and they're making their kids fat and sick.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
My nephews have had some things going on, and my brother-in-law had GERD, and they as soon as I had went completely plant-based, I remember I made a huge Moroccan sweet potato for them for dinner with chickpeas on it and everything, and they couldn't even recognize the plate. They're like, what is this?" It had a little bit of sautéed spinach on it. They ate it and they loved it. And I started telling them about how, I reversed some of my medical autoimmune diseases and my brother-in-law who had GERD and some other things going on as well, a little overweight at that time, jumped fully in that day. I remember we were eating dinner with them and he goes, told his wife, Lex, I'm in. Let's do this. Let's do the same thing. Let's go 100% plant-based. Tell me everything. So I made this amazing connection with my brother-in-law that I never had, same age as me. Him and his wife jumped all in. Their kids, all their dairy issues and all the issues that they didn't even understand what was going on, reversed. My brother-in-law no longer has GERD or acid reflux, doesn't take any of those medications anymore. Dropped a
Great.
ton of weight. Him and I ran a 5K together, and we did phenomenal back in our hometown in Buffalo, New York. My sister-in-law does all kinds of cooking. They opened a plant-based restaurant in Buffalo.
A plant-based restaurant in Buffalo? What's it called?
Yeah, it's called the Flourish Cafe.
Okay.
And my wife and I
Still
actually
in
opened,
operation?
it is, it is. My wife and I actually opened a restaurant too in
Oh,
Richmond, Virginia when we first moved here. Um, it wasn't, at that point, we weren't Whole Foods plant-based, but it was a juicery.
okay.
It was called the Pit and Peel Juice Bar and Bistro. And it's not plant-based, but it was at that time we started to get interested in the whole juicing thing and um, trying to make the meals as healthy as we possibly could. Um, I think when you really look at it, though, the juice isn't going to be as healthy as the smoothie. You want to keep the fiber intact, etc. So I wasn't 100% there, but we were migrating that way. So,
How did you like the experience of having a juice bar or restaurant?
Glenn, it wasn't the best. I think it took a big toll on my wife and I.
Yeah.
At that point, like I said, we were wanting to have children, and my wife was just too busy. She was working
Yeah.
60 hours a week. And I think you and I both know this, that there's just not enough profit margin in health food to make things work.
Right.
So our vision changed a little bit from us being able to make ends meet financially. And so we did away with it. It's moved on since. It's still not a Whole Foods plant-based restaurant. But at
Oh, the
that point in
restaurant still
time,
exists.
yeah, the Pit and the Peel. But
Are you still the owner?
no, nope.
Okay, so you sold it.
Kinda. Yeah, we let it go.
Kinda,
We let it go.
but it still exists.
It still exists.
So you let it go and it still exists.
Well, so
Someone took it over.
someone took it over. A friend of mine, since then though, they've closed quite a few of the locations that were once open. I mean, the
Oh,
economy obviously is just not calling for restaurants to be opening left and right. Because my wife and I mean, we wish we could set up that perfect little niche thing that was like a little breakfast or a little diner,
mhm,
but I think you take a real gamble nowadays if you go ahead and do something like that. I think what
yeah.
our time is better spent educating others on just how to eat optimally.
Well, one way you try to educate others is through your Instagram accounts, right?
Yeah, I've thought about doing some coaching and stuff like that. I still work a full-time job, so I just really haven't taken it on, but
Mm,
I always will offer advice to people who want to listen, who want to improve their health, because
right,
I've done it for my family and friends to the best of my ability. Some
right,
people just aren't going to be receptive to the message, as we know. But I think veganism is growing. It's growing, Glenn. I'm optimistic about people making big changes, whether it be through, agricultural reasons or, the environment or health. I mean, for me, it's always been health, right? But you're only helping things from every angle, the planet and animals, etc.
right. Everything gets better.
Yep.
But here's the concern I have. To the extent that the vegan movement is growing, I find in health food stores there's a vegan section and everything is made with coconut oil. I have this theory that the meat industry is trying to kill us with coconut oil. I can't understand why people would go on a vegan diet to get healthy and then eat this stuff where it says saturated fat 9 grams or something per serving. And then they have 2 servings. They're giving themselves heart attacks with coconut oil. Uh,
Absolutely. I think we have revolts going all over the place where people are hearing about this plant-based movement and they think to themselves, you guys are eating food that looks like meat and it's chemically processed. And yeah, but if you look at the swap meat trial, people were doing better health outcomes from Beyond Meat than they were real meat. So anything we could do to get people to move in the direction of less animal consumption is huge. But now you're seeing this other spin-off of, carnivore dietary pattern. And like I said, that's it's just so laughable because I've been there and I've done that and it doesn't work. It leads you down a bad road,
yeah,
right? So that's once again, that's why my Instagram is Carbivore Fitness because it's a little stab at the carnivore community. I just don't think that these people realize what a big difference it can make to make some small tweaks there and get away from the animal products. And like you said, high saturated fat. I mean, we know for a fact that is how you create microbiome dysbiosis and intestinal permeability. When you look at the studies, that's how they're doing it to mice to make them create more autoimmunity is through those channels of high saturated fat, high fat diet.
right. So, what type of content do you like to put on Carbivore Fitness?
Right now, it's more of a photo dump, Glenn. So it's more of just here's a shot of me in the gym today, and it's for me to track my gradual progress. I don't utilize the account to the ability that I could. Like I said, I like to get into some coaching and stuff like that, but the majority of that is a photo dump to show for me to remember what books I read, uh, and some of the meals I make that are quick, easy, higher protein, higher carb that can help with bodybuilding. So how colorful they can be. And it's a way for me to kind of, remember some of the recipes and stuff like that.
Now, you're still bodybuilding like you used to, but you're at a lower weight than you used to be when you ate meat, right?
Yes, yeah, yeah. So I was as high as 205 to 215 pounds. Now I just float around 160. I mean, is it hard for me to accept that I've lost all that giant muscle mass and weight? Not really. As I get older, I find that I feel better being a little lighter. I
Yeah.
still have a decent physique. I'm edging up on 40 years old, and my energy is unbelievable compared to what it was when I was carrying around all that weight.
Right.
So, and then once again, the waist size is smaller. So I think that's one of the more important things there. That's going to give you better health outcome. And the strength is still there. So at the end
Right.
of the day, in the context of longevity, you need to keep the strength up with resistance training. That's the most important thing.
Right. And you're
So,
still doing that. And I
yeah,
imagine if you wanted to bulk up with 10 more pounds of muscle, you could, right?
easily.
No?
I,
Oh,
I would
easily.
love doing it. Yeah, when you really enjoy your food, it's not hard to just take in more calories.
Right.
I believe Joel Furman had once said this, that he feels like you could probably eat as many plants as you wanted to, and your body would still maintain homeostasis with the weight that you're supposed to be at. Sometimes you do find that. I eat 5, 6 banana ice cream bowls in a row, and I think to myself, oh, I'm going to pay for this.
Yeah.
Nope, I just wake up with a better physique.
Yeah. Yeah, I've found that my weight, I lost about 8 or 10 pounds after I gave up oil. Uh,
Wow.
and after that, my weight just stabilized. And it would be kind of hard for me to put on weight if if I wanted to.
Yeah, so the oil is something, I mean, I've always tried to do the SOS the best of my ability. I lightly salt my foods. Oil, I'm with you. I really don't trust that oil is this miracle food that people make it out to be, right? Even the olive oil, why don't you just eat some olives instead and
Yeah.
maintain the fiber that comes along with them, right? So
Right.
a lot of people will also cry. We got camps coming from everywhere. This is why you have to know how to read the science, but a lot of people cry about how seed oils are inflammatory, and you're just not seeing that through the studies. I mean, there was little to no effect on the immune system whatsoever. But from a macronutrient point of view, you're taking a whole tablespoon of oil, which is going to be 200 plus calories with no fiber. You're probably going to pay for that in another type of way. You know what I mean? So, metabolically, it's not going to be the way to go. Oil just doesn't serve us to the point that people think it does. I think you would be better served with real food.
Sure. And the oil gets even worse when it's heated.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, what about your Rain and Read Instagram account? What do you post there?
So this is the account that I'm more proud of, to tell you the truth. This is something that, it's not my cheesy mirror pics. It's not my bodybuilding thing. It's more so something my wife's really, really controlled from day one. It's her recipes. She makes phenomenal food. When you see the pictures and all the color that comes along with it, um, it's about that, but it's also about how we get our kids involved in cooking. So my wife's big into the sourdough. She has really taken that on, and it's a very healthy sourdough. It's made from acorn wheat, which is the non-hybridized original strain of wheat. So it's lower in gluten and glyphosate and all that. Just some water and salt. She does it all on her own, and she does it with the kids. So a lot of the videos are the kids helping to make the sourdough, and they're making a lot of ferment. She's always doing pickles and red onions and things like that. Because what you find in the context of the immune system is that it's the fermented food that is really the healthiest of all. I mean, that's king, right? And we're so blessed. Once again, a shout out to Dr. Bolsowitz as well, right? A guy a gastroenterologist who breaks out and wants to divulge the truth of how powerful nutrition can be.
Right.
Time and time again, he's always explained that fermented food is number one. And that's what
Right.
my wife does a lot of. She does a lot of the sourdough. The kids have learned to get in the kitchen. What's basically a homeschooling class for us is to keep them in the kitchen and keep them educated on the fruits and vegetables and make it fun, right? For my son, it's Tanner, how do you get stronger eyes, buddy? It's not just carrots, it's also the greens too, and it's just constantly educating them on that kind of stuff because when you go to real school, I mean, are they teaching you that? Is there a nutrition class? We're lacking in nutrition and finance, probably the two more important things we should all know, but we just don't.
Yeah. When I was a kid, my mother told me that carrots made my eyes blue. So I bought it, and I think I learned otherwise when I was like 47 or so. But speaking of the sourdough and the fermented foods, my wife and I were recently in a vegan Eastern European restaurant
Ooh,
in Pittsburgh, Apteca, I think it's called, and a fabulous restaurant. And they served us a drink that was somehow a kvass made from
yeah,
sourdough bread somehow. It was
yeah.
really delicious. And so it was a fermented, food sourdough somehow fermented into a drink and just fantastic.
Yeah, I heard of that before. That's one I'd like to try. I think it was like a big thing in Russia I read once for them to drink
Yeah.
that. I'm not 100% sure, but the fermented foods, they're king. They're up there. And that is another thing I want to say too is, since transitioning to this diet, it was no longer the standard 6 eggs for breakfast, two chicken breasts for lunch, tacos or shrimp for dinner. It was let's get diverse in how we
Yeah.
make food. So I try to every weekend, write down a couple different cultures that we can indulge in cooking that way.
Yeah.
Like Mexican one day, Italian the next day, Ethiopian, Indian. These are like things that we had never thought about when I was just eating standard American diet. And we're
Right.
from Buffalo, New York. I mean, there's only a couple things you ingest there. It's chicken wings and
Yeah.
pizza and beer, and that's it. There is no other food pyramid in Buffalo. So we
Right.
just weren't diverse in that kind of stuff. And that's a whole nother thing that the plant-based diet has really helped us to indulge in since making that change.
Yeah. Um, uh, Dr. Bolshevitz, who you mentioned before, his mantra is diversity of plants, diversity of plants, diversity of plants. And that's really the key to health. You just eat more and different plants all day long in whole food form, and you don't have to go to the doctor.
Yeah, I mean, I think that when you look at the medicine aspect of that too, it's just the way foods synergistically amplify one another. And when you mix them in certain ways, you get, better health outcome. And that's interesting stuff when we find out that stuff. Like, what was the big one that dropped this year? Or was it last year already? The PPO enzyme of bananas and how they ruin the antioxidant capacity of smoothies. Oh, that was a hard one to swallow, Glenn. I mean, who doesn't
Tell
like
me
a
about that
banana
one.
in your
That one
smoothie?
passed me by. What was the
Sure.
story?
So there's an enzyme inside of bananas. I can't remember exactly how to say it. Perioxidase, something or other. It's called PPO, and
Right?
you see the brown in the banana.
Yeah.
It's an oxidizing agent, and what it does is it apparently destroys a lot of the enzymes and antioxidants in foods like cacao and green tea and blueberries and things like that. So if you're throwing a banana in your fruit smoothie with all those antioxidants, you might be kind of putting them to waste. And so
Oh,
I love that we're starting to do studies on, exclusively plant foods and how they interact with one another and how I can change my diet to make it more efficient every day, right?
all right. So don't put bananas in your smoothies, huh?
Shoot for the mangoes or dates. I mean, they're sweet, they're
Okay.
thick, they'll help out.
Now, would the less ripe bananas be less of a problem?
I believe they were. They also found that PPO was somewhat deactivated during freezing, but it was completely destroyed if you were able to boil or cook your bananas. I don't know who's going to do that
I
before.
have never boiled a banana.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So,
I don't know anyone
you-
who has boiled a banana,
Mhm.
and I don't think anybody ever will boil a banana.
Nope, nope, I don't think so. But I
I
was
don't think
I
that's
was diving
happening.
into some research yesterday on it, and apparently PPO can be deactivated with certain enzymes in cinnamon and ginger could deactivate the PPO. So maybe you
Oh,
would
there
want to
you
put
go.
that
Add
in
the
your
banana
smoothie.
and put in some cinnamon.
There you go. Yep. Hopefully that's the answer. Who knows?
All right. Well, Eric, I've learned a lot talking with you. Do you have a website where people can contact you?
I don't have a website for now. I just got the Instagrams
Okay.
up and
Can
Yeah, I
people,
think that,
I don't know Instagram very well. Can people contact you through Instagram?
yeah, they can
Send
message
you a
us.
message?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So the Instagram accounts are Rain, Raine, and Reed, Reed, and Carbivore Fitness. And Eric, it's been a pleasure speaking with you and getting to know you.
You too. Thank you so much, Glenn. I appreciate it.
Take care. This has been the Glenn Mercer Show, where everyone listening turns vegan, regains their health, and annoys their friends and relatives. Find us on YouTube at The Glenn Mercer Show and across all your major podcast platforms. Don't forget to subscribe.